Dirtle Magic. Hello and welcome back. You can follow our post on Twitter and Facebook at DirtleMTG to stay up to date on our latest videos and other posts, and you can join a more robust discussion about Casual Commander at our blog, thedicebag.blog. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content to help the channel and the blog grow. Another way you can support the channel, though, is through our affiliate links in the description below. If you're looking for single sealed product or gaming accessories to protect all of that glory, please consider clicking the links in the description. Now, grab some spells, it's time to dirtle. Alright. Time to take a try at wielding double swords with Isshin, 2 heavens is 1. Facing me in combat are Alela, Florian, and Rafiq of the Many. Alela wins the die roll and plays an Arcane Sanctum. Florian drops a Command Tower. Rafiq has a Savannah come into play, and follows it with a Mana Crypt. A Soul Ring is cast afterward, and then a Guardian Project. That's a good turn 1, I think. Unfortunately, I'm going last. I draw a Robber of the Rich, and drop a Sacred Foundry into play tapped. 2 Alela, and a Hollowed Fountain comes into play untapped, costing them 2 life. They cast Ornithopter of Paradise. At the end of the turn, Florian casts a Vampiric Tutor, and puts a card from their library on top. 2 Florian's turn proper, and they play a Swamp. They cast Arcane Signet, and then a Soul Ring. I'm feeling a little outmaneuvered here. Over to Rafiq, and the Crypt triggers. They win the flip, and drop a Tropical Island into play, passing the turn afterward. My turn brings me an Exotic Orchard. I play Rugged Prairie, and cast the Robber of the Rich. It has haste, so I move to combat and swing at the Rafiq player, who takes 2, and I pass the turn. Alela's turn sees a Scrubland into play. Talisman of Dominance hits the field, and then the Talisman is tapped for mana to help cast a Rhystic Study. Florian's turn has a Mountain come into play. They cast the commander, Volduran Scion. Vicious Conquistador is then cast, and they end their turn. A Crypt trigger for the Rafiq player, and the toss is bad. They take 3, going down to 35. A Plains hits the field, and they cast their commander. Rhystic Study triggers for the cast, and they pay for the tax. When Rafiq comes into play, the project triggers, and the Rafiq player draws a card. I gain Marchesa's Decree on my turn. I play a Plains, and cast Path to Exile on Rafiq. I pay for the Rhystic trigger, and Rafiq heads back to the command zone. I pass without a combat, satisfied I slowed down the Rafiq player. Sad Robot comes down for Alela, and they grab an island from their deck. Florian's turn begins with combat, swinging both of their creatures into the Rafiq player. The Conquistador triggers, and we all lose 1 life. Rafiq takes the 4 damage from combat, and drops to 30 life total. In the second main phase, Florian triggers, and they look at the top 7 cards of their library, revealing a Vashino Heretic. They cast the Vashino, paying for the Rhystic Study trigger. Feed the Swarm then hits the stack, targeting the Rhystic Study, and the enchantment goes down while Florian loses 3 life, dropping to 35. Back to Rafiq, and the Crypt triggers like it does. They lose the flip again, going down to 27. Temple Garden comes into play tapped. They cast their commander again, and when it enters, they draw a card for the project. Moving to me, I draw Rip Apart. I play Exotic Orchard, and then cast Burnished Heart. I pass, tapping my mana to say I'm no threat to any swings. Alela's turn sees the commander to the field. Lightning Greaves is then cast, and Alela triggers to create a fairy token. Greaves gets equipped to Alela, and they move to combat. Alela and the Simulacrum swing into me, and I take 4, going down to 35 and up to 2 commander. Maybe I should have left my mana up instead. The Alela player gains 2 life. 2 Florian, and the Vashino Heretic is activated to destroy the Lightning Greaves on Alela's side. That player takes 2 damage from the ability, and Florian moves to combat. Florian is assigned against the Alela player, and that player chooses not to block. They take 3, go down to 36, and up to 3 commander damage. Florian triggers in the second main, and they look at the top 5 cards, revealing a Scavenger Grounds from their deck. They play it, and then cast their own Lightning Greaves. It's equipped to their commander, and then Sidon and Blood hits the stack, drawing them 2 cards, and they lose 2 life. To Rafiq, and the Crypt triggers again. The flip is 1, and no damage is taken. Aqueous Form enchants Rafiq, and he becomes unblockable. Elvish Mystic falls the enchantment down. Ethereal Armor is then cast to enchant Rafiq, and the player moves to combat. Rafiq swings into the Alela player, triggering the Aqueous Form, and Rafiq's Exalted and Double Strike triggers. Rafiq becomes a 7/7, and without blocks, deals 14 commander damage to the Alela player. That player also drops to 22. My turn comes around, giving me a Sulphurous Springs. I play it, and cast Rip Apart on the Aqueous Form, both to protect me and hopefully gain some points at the table. Unfortunately, Hindering Light is ready to hinder my progress and counters my spell. I then cast Isshin and pass my turn. Alela's turn as Morphic Pool enter the battlefield. They cast the Sword of the Realms, and Alela makes a new fairy token. The sword is equipped to Alela. Skull Clamp then hits the sack, and another fairy token is made. Once the clamp is into play, a fairy is clamped and the Alela player draws 2 cards. In combat, Alela and 1 fairy token swing into the Rafiq player, dealing 6 damage total. They go down to 21 and up to 4 commander. In the second main phase, the clamp is equipped to the Sad Robot. Florian's turn has them activating the Heretic to destroy Rafiq's Soul Ring and dealing 1 damage to that player. Moving to attacks, the Florian player sends their commander and the Conquistador into Rafiq. The Conquistador triggers to drain each other player for 1, and the Rafiq player ends up taking 4 from the attack, dropping a total of 5 points to 16 for the turn. Florian triggers, letting that player look at the top 7 cards in the second main, and Obosh the Prey Piercer is exiled. It's cast from that void, and they pass the turn. Rafiq's turn has the Crypt Flip and kick them for 3 damage. A Fluid Delta hits the field, and they cast Unnatural Growth, which is followed by the Knight of Glory. Do combat and the growth triggers, doubling the power and toughness of Rafiq. They declare attacks against the Florian player, and Rafiq, the Knight, and the Aqueous triggers. Rafiq connects for 32 total commander damage, and the Florian player goes down. On my turn, I gain a Plains. I play it and cast Marchesa's Decree, mostly for the card draw from the Monarchy. I move to combat and swing all of my creatures at the Rafiq player. Robber triggers twice, and I exile Grun, the Lonely King, and Fabor Elder. The Knight of Glory intercepts Isshin, and he heads back to the command zone. Rafiq takes 4 from the attack otherwise, and drops to 9. At the end of the turn, I draw Wayfarer's Bauble, which isn't too helpful. 2 of the fairies, and Spire of Industry hits the field. Skull Clamp is moved over to Alela, and they go to attacks. Alela, both fairy tokens, and the Simulacrum swing into the Rafiq player. The Rafiq player doesn't block anything, and takes lethal damage. To my turn, I gain a Slayer's Stronghold. I play it, and cast the Bauble. To combat, I swing with both of my creatures. Robber exiles a Fetid Pool, and Alela is assigned to block my Robber. The Robber and Alela kill each other in combat, and the Alela player gains 5 life while taking 2 damage, for a net gain of 3 life points. The Sword of the Realms triggers, bringing Alela back to that player's hand, and they draw 2 cards from the Clamp trigger. In the second main, I crack my Bauble to grab a swamp from my deck into play tapped, and crack the Heart to get a mountain and another swamp. I pass, drawing a Godless Shrine. Back to Alela, and they cast their commander. The sword is then equipped to her, and combat ensues. All of their available creatures crash down on me, and Marchesa's Decree triggers to drain the Alela player for 4 life. I take 7 and drop to 26. Alela gains the Monarchy, and I'm a sad samurai. In the second main, Clamp gets equipped to Alela. At the end of the turn, they gain a card from the hat. Tome of Legends comes to my hand on my turn. I play a command Beacon, and cast Itali, the Primal Storm. I then cast the Tome, and activate it to draw a card. I draw Yerbrast the Hidden, and pass the turn. Alela's turn begins with Reconnaissance Mission, and Alela makes a fairy. That's going to be a lot of card draw. In combat, Alela, the fairy tokens, and the Sad Robot swing into me. The Decree triggers, and they lose 4 life. I don't block the robot, and take 11, 5 of which is commander, and go down to 15. The Alela player gains 5 life, and the Reconnaissance triggers 4 times, letting them draw 4 cards. Isolated Chapel comes into play during the second main, and the turn ends with more card draw for them from the hat. My turn draws me a Mangar, the Diplomat. I play a Godless Shrine tapped, and resummon my commander. Unfortunately, it's met with access denied, and he takes another trip to the command zone. I activate the Stronghold, targeting Itali, and go to attacks. I swing Itali, exiling an Inventor's Fair and a Kazul Tyrant of the Cliffs. I cast the Tyrant with the trigger, and Itali gets chumped by Alela. They both die in combat, and the Alela player gains 5 life. Alela returns to its owner's hand, and they draw 2 cards. I pass, hoping to find a way out of this mess. The Alela player recasts their commander again when their turn comes around. Anointed Procession then hits the field afterward, and I am in some deep poodoo. Irrigated Farmland hits the field, and they move to combat. They attack with everything able, and I get a bunch of triggers. They lose 8 total life from the attack, and I gain 8 3/3 Ogre tokens. After the stack clears out, I assign a blocker against the sad robot, and it dies, drawing the Alela player a card. Otherwise, I take 13 damage, dropping to 2. The Alela player draws a total of 8 cards from their triggers, and they end the turn with 1 more card, and at 26 life. My turn has a Plains come to hand, and I again wonder how many lands I actually put in a deck. I play it, and cast Hurabrask the Hidden. I then cast Mangara, and proceed to activate Slayer's Stronghold to give Mangara haste and vigilance. Moving to attacks, I swing with everything in a desperate bid for survival. Alela is assigned to block Kazul, and a fairy token into Hurabrask. Damage is good though, and I deal exactly lethal. Good game to my opponents. I've been trying Isshin a bunch, and it seems to have very similar play patterns. That is to say, I get my creatures killed a lot, and Ruinous Ultimatum wins games. In this particular game, we got a bit lucky with Kazul off the top. Otherwise, I don't think I was coming back from the amount of advantage Alela was generating, especially if we let them have that Annoyed Procession. Even Marchesa's Decree, helping against the life gain, probably wasn't going to help us if we didn't get Kazul. Thank you for tuning in again to another casual commander game here on Dirtle Magic. Until next time, stay safe out there.